Alright, so this is a suggestion via Patreon. The name of the video is, are horses OP? I don't think so, but I'm sure we'll learn today, right guys? Let's go check it out. This is coming from, oh no, TIERZOO, guys. First time encountering this channel, guys. Alright, let's check it out. TIERZOO. What a beautiful day to be alive.
Players have a wide selection of equipment to choose from when speccing their character. Teeth, claws, stingers, spikes, each weapon has distinct advantages and disadvantages in combat. Herbivore players, spikes, each weapon has distinct advantages and disadvantages.
We got some Fallout 3 references, maybe 4. We got some Fallout references, guys. All right, we're here.
In combat.
Like
Herbivore players tend to favor highly intimidating equipment like horns and antlers. In the African meta, things are taken to the extreme, with builds like the elephant, rhino, and cave buffalo rocking some of the most threatening tusks and horns in the entire game. So you might be surprised to learn that one of the most successful builds in the African savanna is the zebra, a build with no obvious weaponry to speak of. So what is it about the zebra build that has granted it such a dominant position in the savanna? We'll answer that question and many more in today's video, which was sponsored by CuriosityStream.
Okay.
To answer that question, let's zoom out a bit and discuss the incredible stats and abilities of the entire equine faction, including zebras, horses, and donkeys. Let's begin with their stats. Right off the bat, it's plain to see that this is a highly mobility-centric build, with an above-average power stat to back it up.
Guys, are we building these animals like video game characters? Guys, the idea of that is fascinating. Okay, let's go.
Slightly above average intelligence and fairly poor defense, HP, and stealth stats. At first glance, you might think that these stats belong to a rushdown predator, something like a wolf or eagle, something that can overwhelm its target with speed and power, and either finish the attack before the defender has a chance to counterattack, or weave in and out of the defender's effective range, chipping away at it or tiring it out. Clearly, stats don't in and out of the defender's effective
Now we have some Elden Ring references.
Range, chipping away at it or tiring it out. Clearly, stats don't tell the whole story here, as all equines are herbivores. So let's delve a little deeper into the abilities and strategies that horses and all their variants utilize to survive. Seeing as their highest stat is mobility, it's no surprise that an equine...
Bro, where did that line come from?
Seeing as their...
Okay, no, I see it. Zebra, why are you just...
highest stat is mobility, it's no surprise that an equine player's best defense against a predator player's attack is to run away. While not technically as fast as the max speed of a top-tier predator, horse builds are able to maintain high speeds for much longer, and because of this, builds like the big cat or bear have little chance of catching them without an extremely stealthy ambush. The horse's specialized hooves grant them a bonus to burst movement speed and allow them to ignore the movement penalties of rocky terrain. The likelihood of a successful ambush is driven even lower due to the horse's solid intelligence stat, which allows it to engage in herd behaviors, such as individuals keeping watch to alert vulnerable teammates of approaching enemies. Taking shifts keeping watch is really important in a party of horse players, because horses need to spend massive amounts of time grazing. See, horses did not spec into the ruminant perk, which means they can't extract nearly as much energy from grass as builds like sheep and cows can. This was an intentional trade-off to keep the build much more lean and agile than ruminants, enabling them to dash quickly and jump great distances. But because the amount of time they need to spend feeding with their heads down is around double that of an equivalent-sized ruminant, there's no way they'd be able to avoid an ambush alone. If they do get attacked, the chase begins, and this is where one of the horse's other core abilities comes into play: sweating. Now, I do need to address an inaccuracy I made in a previous video, my most viewed video to date, Are Humans OP?, where I say the ability to sweat is uniquely human. This isn't entirely accurate. Horses also have the ability to sweat in order to dissipate heat. However, they're no...
Okay, wait, so there's another video called Are Humans OP, most likely. I think we are, bro. I think we are absolutely overpowered.
Nowhere near as efficient at cooling down via sweating as humans are, for one main reason: body hair. Sweat doesn't evaporate off of a horse's body as easily as it does a human, because sweat gets trapped in the hair on a horse's body.
Then it,
as such, humans still absolutely crush horses in terms of thermoregulation during distance running. But sweating is still an extremely powerful ability that massively reduces a player's loss of stamina during a run, and thereby greatly increases the potential distance a player can travel. Anyways, if during a chase, the horse player finds itself somehow unable to completely avoid an attack, that's when the other signature equine ability comes into play, their kick. Now, in relation to more typical
guys, I saw somebody get kicked by a horse in Manhattan, like one of the police horses, guys. Oh my! Guys, that was absolutely brutal. All right, like I don't know. Unfortunately, I think it was like he got kicked like here in this area here. I have never seen anyone like in real life have a seizure like until that very specific day, guys. I have never seen that before, and I just didn't know what was happening. You know, I was obviously pretty far away from the situation, but guys, that was absolutely scary. It was frightening. So I can only imagine. That's exactly probably. Oh, guys, it's probably the worst thing you could possibly imagine. Getting kicked by a horse. I wish that for none of you guys. All right, none of you guys. I'm gladly this has not happened to me. I know that horses are kind of safe, right, to be around. But like, what are the times when they kick? Like, do you know like time in advance when they're going to kick, or are they like easily startled? All right.
Combat moves like biting, swiping, and stinging. Kicking is generally seen as a rather janky attack style, mostly used as either a desperate combo breaker attempt or the best option available to builds which haven't spec'd their characters to allow for better combat moves. Generally speaking, kicks don't deal that much damage. They're fairly telegraphed and easy to dodge, and they can even throw the user off balance if they miss. However, if we take a look at the horse's kick, we see an entirely different picture. The horse's kick hits with a force of around 2,000 psi, putting it well above the power of a jaguar bite, and just a bit below the power of a crocodile bite. Both of those builds are top tier specifically
Okay, now I understand why that guy went into a seizure, guys. I fully understand. Imagine getting hit that...
because of their incredible bite damage, so having a kick of roughly equivalent power is extremely useful. However, plenty of large builds have no issue dealing damage.
What is that?
Moose, elk, wildebeest, and other large ungulate builds can threaten insane damage if they connect with a charging slam. However, attacks like that are incredibly telegraphed, and most players have a decent amount of practice dodging them. In contrast, a horse's kick has incredible frame data, to the point where it's basically unreactable if you're within range, which I should add can be deceptively far. This makes approaching a defending equine player a lot more risky than most herbivore builds. However, the horse's kick has synergies that increase its utility far beyond what can be explained by its base damage and frame data. When it comes to defending themselves from attacking carnivore players, equine builds are at a huge advantage. Let me explain. So, most herbivore builds have only two options when confronted with an adversary: fight or flight. Carnivore players know this, and tailor their strategies to take advantage of the defending player's limited options. When wolves hunt large prey, like elk, their main advantage is to break the defending player's nerve and frighten it into fleeing. They will not commit to an attack if the defending player chooses to stand and fight. However, they will continue to pressure it with bluff charges and fake-outs, hoping to bait out a defensive attack. However, as mentioned before, these counterattacks are slow enough to be dodged on reaction, quickly lowering the elk's morale, especially as the rest of its herd likely gets further and further away. It's only after a prey animal starts fleeing that these predators will actually try to deal damage by attacking the hindquarters to inflict heavy bleed buildup. In order to stop these attacks, most herbivores will once again stop and turn to face their attackers, which just resets the situation back to the first phase. Horses, zebras, and donkeys can completely thwart this plan of attack, as their kick grants them an extremely valuable option, the ability to counterattack while fleeing. Since they don't need to stop and face their attackers in order to deal damage, and because their kicks are harder to dodge than horn charges, zebras have one of the highest KD ratios against lions and hunting dogs in the game. While it might not be as impressive and showy as having huge horns or antlers, there's no denying that this strategy is extremely effective at warding off attacks and escaping danger. On top of all the other benefits, kicking also allows the equine player to keep its vitals well out of reach and isn't exposing
guys.
If you benefits.
Know,
kicking
guys.
Also allows the equine.
But this right here is so frustrating. This right here, all right. Whenever you see this on your screen while you're playing like any type of like From Software game, right? It'll happen a lot because I think it's a different type of torture guys.
Player to keep its vitals
These From Software games.
well out of reach and isn't exposing itself to a critical hit counterattack like some Horn users do when they attack. It does have its limitations though. Kicking backwards requires specific positioning, which, unless your character has 360-degree vision, will make your attacks less accurate. And on the odd chance that your opponent does get in front of you and land a grab before you're able to turn away, your options to fight back will be fairly limited, and nowhere near as powerful. Now, I do want to mention that unlike many ruminant herbivores, which only have lower teeth, equine players do possess a full set of upper and lower teeth that are able to deliver quite powerful bites. So they aren't completely helpless when facing an enemy head-on. But nonetheless, the unidirectional nature of their strong
Why do they kick each other?
attack option does mean that some counterplay is available. Next, let's discuss the advantages and disadvantages of the different variants of the equine build. We'll start with the horse, the most well-known of the bunch. Horses undoubtedly have the best base stats of the group, with higher power and more HP being the most obvious things that scale with size.
Let me see it come out of the room again, bro.
Start with the
door.
horse, the most well-known of the bunch. Horses
What is this monstrosity?
undoubtedly have the best base stats of the group, with higher power and more HP being the most obvious things that scale with size. They've also got the fastest top speed. However, perhaps even more importantly, the horse's higher intelligence stat enables cross-species team strategies, which can lead to some incredibly broken combos. Zebras have a slightly lower base stat total, although this change isn't really enough to affect their playstyle. They're still perfectly capable of escaping attacks using their speed and endurance, and punishing overly aggressive enemies with a devastating kick. In addition to all this though, the zebra's unique stripe pattern grants it a few extra bonus perks. Because this pattern helps break up their outline and obscure their position, especially when grouped up, attacks against zebras incur a slight accuracy penalty. Surprisingly, this debuff even applies to insects, resulting in zebras taking significantly less damage from parasites than other similarly sized builds. In exchange though, the zebra's intelligence stat is a fair bit lower, to the point where zebras are unable to engage in the same team combos as horses. Donkeys
Okay, so you can't ride a zebra? So Red Dead Redemption, the first one, lied to us? Okay.
are a bit of an outlier group, with the lowest power stat of the group. They have the highest intelligence stat, but tend to actually prefer solo play. They can be trained to become a useful party member, but they aren't naturally suited to this style of gameplay. And although they're quite capable of dishing out serious damage with their kicks, donkey mains also tend to favor the bite move in combat, a somewhat poorly optimized build in my opinion. It's no surprise that despite horses and zebras having quite solid matchups against both canid and felid opponents, donkeys end up experiencing a fair bit of difficulty, in part due to their smaller size, but also because maybe they just don't realize the potential power of a well-placed kick. Of the three main equine classes, it's a tough call which one I think is the most viable. I think
Okay, based off of what we learned today, I definitely will tell you, if I was to pretty much have to pick one, it would definitely be the horse, just period. Because at least you can ride them, right? I mean, you definitely have the combo, like you said here, guys. If you can't ride a zebra, then there's no point with the zebra, personally. The donkey? Nah.
I think they're definitely all at least high.
But I know you can mate the donkey and the horse together and create something else, like a mule or something, right? Or is a mule guys? Oh, God. I'm so bad with animals.
B tier. Personally, I do think horses take the top spot, and I'd even give them the rank of low A tier. See, despite being originally from the North American server, horses have successfully established invasive populations all across the overworld, including places in Africa that even zebras have difficulty surviving in. This is the premise for the incredible documentary Stallions of the Namib Desert, which chronicles the descendants of a small group of horses abandoned by World War I soldiers a century ago. This documentary is available to watch right now on CuriosityStream, the sponsor of today's video. CuriosityStream is...
I definitely love all the video game references because I'm absolutely a gamer at heart. I've played all the games that have been referenced here. I saw a couple of Minecraft references also. Not really too much of a fan of the game, right? Not fully. Right? But all right, listen. If you want me to continue checking out his videos, I have no mind. It doesn't... So what did we learn today? We learned that horses are absolutely overpowered in the equine family, as he stated. Donkeys are probably right behind them, and then comes zebra, right? In terms of all the animals that I probably wouldn't want to ever have any issues with, would probably be the horses. Because again, I saw someone basically get kicked right here, here, right? by a horse in the face. I didn't know that it was like 2,000 pounds of overall pressure that was being applied to this man's neck. It explains to me why he went into a seizure. That was absolutely something that I'll never forget in my entire life, and it probably was the cause of me never really wanting to be around horses for any extended amount of time. I can only tell you there's only been one instance where I've purposely been around a horse. I was booked for a photo shoot in Villanueva del Trabuco, Spain. It's a small village in the mountains of the mountains of the Sierra Nevada in Spain. And it was a horse farm. I was meant to photograph a model on a horse, basically, but dressed in common typical Andalusian like garb, right? As she rode her horse. Very fun experiment, an experience. I would say more of an experiment because I didn't know if I was going to live that day. Because of course that was well after my experience with the horse in Manhattan. Okay, so that was, listen, but these animals are absolutely beautiful to look at from afar. I almost touched one, but I was like, I don't really want to get kicked in the face today. Then I spoke with the people that owned the actual horse farm. They were from the United Kingdom. And they were like, that's a rare occurrence. You saw a rare occurrence, and that occurrence scarred you for life from horses. Yes, it did. It absolutely frightened me. I didn't know what to do with myself after that day, watching something like that. Listen, now I've seen a couple of crazy things happen in Manhattan. Absolutely. That was probably the second worst. The first one was when someone decided that it was going to be a good idea to step onto a train track and subways. Guys, that was absolutely abysmal. Sorry to get dark. That got dark really fast, I know, right? But yeah, that day messed me up with horses. I promise you. It messed me up with horses until again, later on in life when I went to Spain, I saw this, the horse farm, and I got really close to one. I almost touched it. But that was going to be a no. I'm just going to look at it from afar, guys, right? So, yeah. I may actually give you guys some photos, show you what I'm talking about. We'll see. Listen, but if you would like for me to check out any more of this guy's videos, I have no problem. I love his delivery and I love all the video game references. I will. And you guys all have an absolutely amazing day and enjoy your day thoroughly.